There's a copper pipe sticking out of the ground in the middle of our vegetable bed. It cost $1.97. The neighbors have been staring at her for months. They don't know that the pipe is just the tip of a system that goes deep underground. There are 2 hidden layers underneath, and all 3 together do something that no bag of fertilizer does. The garden bed waters itself. It protects our palm tomatoes from late blight. It generates a measurable electrical charge that physically repels slugs. Every year it becomes more fertile, not poorer. We didn't invent this. A version of this system fed an entire civilization in the Amazon 2,000 years ago. A Scottish watchmaker proved the electrical half of this system in 1841. A French professor accidentally discovered the antifungal half in 1885, and a team from Northwestern University confirmed the biological half just last year. These are not 4 separate tricks. These are 4 parts of one system. A system that has been quietly pushed aside by an industry that profits while the soil remains hungry and gardeners continue to come with open wallets. In Germany and Eastern Europe, farmers have been burying wood under their garden beds for centuries. They call it Hügelkultur, hill culture. The technique was popularized by Austrian farmer Sepp Holzer, who created productive gardens in Alpine heights, where everyone said farming was impossible. The practice itself is much older. Farmers across Central Europe have been doing this for generations without textbooks or names. Bury the wood, see what grows. The method is simple. Dig a trench or stack logs on the ground, top with branches, leaves, and compost, cover everything with soil and plant. What happens next turns into a scientific miracle. Buried wood begins to decompose and absorbs water like a sponge. One large log can hold several times its own weight in moisture. During dry periods, the accumulated water slowly seeps back into the surrounding soil, keeping the roots hydrated without a single drip from the hose. Gardeners who have built these beds with ample wood mass report stopping watering completely after the 2nd year. A garden bed that waters itself, using only stored rainwater slowly released by rotting wood. No drip systems, no timers, no water bills. Moisture is just the beginning. The decomposition process generates heat as the billions of microorganisms digesting the wood produce thermal energy as a byproduct. The temperature inside a decaying tree can be several degrees warmer than the surrounding ground. Planting season arrives weeks earlier due to warmer soil surfaces. Frost-sensitive crops survive longer in the fall. The wood heats the bed from the inside, creating a microclimate that extends the growing season both ways without a single watt of artificial energy. As the wood continues to decompose over months and years, it fuels an explosion of life underground. The fungi are the first to colonize the logs, sending white threads of mycelium through the wood fibers like an underground communication network. Bacteria follow, worms arrive, beetles, springtails, and mites take up permanent residence. Decaying wood becomes a habitat, a city where organisms transform raw organic matter into forms that plant roots can absorb directly. A large Hügelkultur bed built with substantial logs can continue to produce for over 10 years before the wood completely decomposes. When this finally happens, what is left is deep, dark, crumbly soil that gardeners invariably describe as the best growing soil. The garden bed becomes more fertile every year, not poorer. This in itself destroys every assumption on which the fertilizer industry depends. In January 2024, a team at Northwestern University published research on what they called a mud fuel cell. It was about the size of a pocketbook and worked by collecting electrons released by soil bacteria as they digested organic material underground, the same species of bacteria that colonize every buried log. The device outperformed comparable soil energy technologies by 120%. As long as there is organic carbon in the soil for microbial breakdown, the fuel cell could potentially last forever, the lead researcher said. Soil microbial fuel cells were first demonstrated in 1911, but a team from Northwestern University is the first to get one to work reliably in real outdoor conditions with wet and dry soil. Consider what this means for a buried log. As long as there is organic carbon in the soil, what is a buried log if not organic carbon? What bacteria do when they break it down is release electrons. What electrons flowing through a conducting medium create is an electric current. Decaying wood in your garden bed is a living battery. It has been working under every forest on Earth for as long as humans have existed. Nobody packaged it because nobody could sell it. But one tree has a problem. The nutrients it releases are washed through the soil profile by rain and out of reach of plant roots. 5,000 miles south of German farms, deep in the Amazon jungle, scientists have discovered patches of soil so black it appears to have been painted with ink. Locals call it Terra Preta do Indio, the dark land of the Indians. These soils should not exist. The natural soil of the Amazon is thin, acidic, and nutrient-poor, and the tropical heat decomposes organic matter so quickly that almost nothing accumulates. Yet here, surrounded by some of the worst farmland on Earth, are tracts of land so rich that it has continuously produced food for over 2,000 years without a single chemical fertilizer. The fertile layer reaches 2 meters in depth. It contains 3 to 18 times more carbon than the surrounding forest floor. Brazilian villagers still mine it and sell it as premium potting soil. For decades, scientists debated whether the soil was natural or man-made, until archaeologists found shards of pottery, fish bones, and the unmistakable chemical signature of deliberately produced charcoal throughout the soil profile. Indigenous Amazonians created it specifically by taking wood and heating it in low-oxygen pits to remove volatile oils and produce char. Not ash, but the stable, porous, carbon-rich solid we now call biochar. They ground it up, mixed it with kitchen scraps, fish waste, manure, and broken pottery, and added it to their garden plots for generations. Before these sites were properly documented, most historians denied that the Amazon could support large, settled civilizations. They were looking at the wrong land. Here's a detail that should change the way you think about charcoal. 1 gram of wood-based biochar contains up to 300 square meters of internal surface area. Under a microscope, coal appears as a honeycomb of tiny tunnels and chambers carved into pure carbon. These pores provide habitat for billions of microorganisms that decompose organic matter and deliver nutrients directly to the plant roots. The pores hold water in sandy soil that would otherwise dry out in hours and loosen heavy clay that would otherwise smother roots. But the property that binds coal to copper is electrical. Biochar carries a strong negative surface charge. Its surface is coated with oxygen-containing chemical groups that give it what soil scientists call a high cation exchange capacity. It acts as a magnet for nutrient ions. Positively charged particles, calcium, potassium, ammonium, zinc, and magnesium, are attracted to the surface of the coal and remain there instead of being washed away by the next rainstorm. Regular soil allows nutrients to leach through. Biochar traps them and stores them right in the root zone. Critical to what we're building here, peer-reviewed research from several countries confirms that adding biochar to soil measurably increases its electrical conductivity. You're not just improving the earth with nutrients, you're upgrading it to a better electrical environment. This single property is the bridge between ancient coal and the discovery made by a Scottish watchmaker in 1841. This is where the story takes its strangest turn. There is one more thing about Terra Preta that makes it unlike anything in the history of agriculture. The soil regenerates itself. Brazilian farmers report that Terra Preta grows about 1 centimeter per year. Scientists confirm that biochar creates such a favorable microbial environment that the community continually pulls new organic material into the soil structure. As fresh leaves fall, microbes colonize them, decompose them, and incorporate carbon into the existing carbon matrix. Soil builds itself without human intervention, the exact opposite of every farming system used today. When you add buried wood under the coal, you feed the system from below while nature feeds it from above. Fertility increases, not decreases. Alexander Bain took a plate of zinc and a plate of copper, buried them about a meter apart in damp soil, and connected them with wire. The soil produced approximately 1 volt of stable direct current. Zinc is more reactive than copper. When both metals are in an environment containing dissolved ions, zinc begins to give up electrons. These electrons flow through the wire to the copper, producing usable current. Underground, moist soil carries charged ions between plates to complete the circuit. Bain used this current to power the world's first electric clock. His British patent number 8783 covers every detail. The device ran for months without winding, without refueling, without maintenance. Just a quiet current drawn from the chemistry under its feet. Within a few years, telegraph companies throughout Britain adopted the same principle, burying copper and zinc plates under relay stations and using the soil as a return conductor. The ground return method cut the need for copper wire in half. Stations along the Edinburgh-Glasgow Railway ran on current drawn from the ground. But the detail that was supposed to launch the agricultural revolution never happened. Telegraph workers and local farmers noticed that the grass growing directly above the buried plates was different. Darker, denser, higher, and not by a small amount, so obvious that it could be noticed from a distance. The Yorkshire station master pointed out a lush green strip running along the buried return line, while the grass on either side was plain and pale. The sighting was repeated throughout England and Scotland. Wherever the earth conducted current between two buried metals, vegetation flourished. No one published an article, no one sent a researcher, no one connected the green grass with a buried battery. The observation was passed down by word of mouth and then quietly forgotten, but not completely. In 1918, the British Ministry of Agriculture established the Electroculture Committee to formally study whether electrical stimulation could increase crop yields. The committee included physicists, biologists, and electrical engineers, and they conducted field tests for almost 2 decades throughout England and Scotland. Their findings spread through 18 interim reports documenting what the telegraph workers saw with their own eyes. In the committee's own words, electric fields had a very noticeable effect on the development of plant growth. The results were so significant that the question of the committee's work was raised in the House of Commons in 1924 and recorded in Hansard, the official parliamentary record. Then, in 1936, the committee was dissolved. The reports were placed in the National Archives under IAF Section 33913. Some of the material was classified as confidential. The scholar David Kinahan of University College London later examined the committee's work and concluded that the electroculture effect was real and that the committee was closed as a result of economic pressure. 1936 was no coincidence. It was the exact period when synthetic fertilizers were spreading across Europe and profits from chemical agriculture were accelerating. One curve grew, the other was quietly buried in the archive. The paper trail is still there, the case numbers are registered, the parliamentary question is in Hansard, and a $2 copper pipe sitting in biochar-enriched soil above decaying wood does, on a miniature scale, exactly what that committee has been documenting for 18 years. Now let's connect the 3 layers. Buried wood decomposes, generates heat, stores water, and feeds an explosion of bacteria that release electrons by digesting organic carbon, your biological engine. A layer of biochar sits above the wood, trapping every nutrient ion that decomposition releases, holding water in its pores, housing microbial life in its tunnels, and increasing the electrical conductivity of the surrounding soil. This is your power magnet and electrical bridge. The copper pipe sits at the root zone at the top in moist, slightly acidic garden soil, which is what most vegetable beds naturally are. The copper surface slowly corrodes, releasing copper 2+ ions into the immediate surrounding soil. These ions do 3 documented things at once. First, they deliver the micronutrient copper directly to plant roots in ionic form, which the plants absorb. Copper is essential for the production of chlorophyll, the activation of enzymes, and the synthesis of lignin, which strengthens cell walls. Plants with sufficient copper resist fungal invasion more effectively. Tomatoes, beets, carrots, onions, and spinach have increased copper requirements. Secondly, copper ions create a localized antimicrobial zone. This is an identical mechanism that French botany professor Pierre-Marie Alexis Millardet stumbled upon in a Bordeaux vineyard in 1885 when he noticed that grapevines painted with copper sulfate to deter student fruit thieves resisted a devastating fungal plague. His mixture, published that same year, increased potato yields by 64% over a 20-year study in Vermont. The Irish potato famine of 1840, which killed 1 million people, was caused by exactly the type of fungal disease that Bordeaux mixture would have prevented. Millardet's discovery came 40 years later for Ireland. Third, the exposed portion of the pipe above the soil line acts as a passive barrier to slugs and snails. This connection between copper and shellfish dates back centuries. Christopher Columbus's ships had hulls lined with copper in the late 1400s, specifically to prevent woodworms from destroying the wood. The British Navy standardized copper plating throughout the fleet by 1780. The same electrochemical reaction that protected the hull of a warship is stopping a slug from crossing your garden pipe today. Slugs use the copper-containing protein hemocyanin to transport oxygen, unlike mammals, which use the iron-containing hemoglobin. This makes them extremely sensitive to external copper. When the slug's mucus touches the copper, the dissolved salts act as an electrolyte, the copper acting as one electrode and the slug's body as the other. This generates 0.5 to 1 volt through the animal, about 2/3 from an AA battery. The slug shrinks immediately and doesn't return. 1 pipe, 3 proven features, 0 recurring costs. But here's why you were never taught any of this at the Garden Center. Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch hacked the industrial production of ammonia in 1909. By 1913, the first plant was operating. What once required years of crop rotation could now be delivered in a bag. American farmers spent $300 million on synthetic fertilizers in 1945. By 1975, this figure exceeded $3 billion. Today, the global fertilizer industry is worth more than $200 billion a year, and the pesticide market adds another $60 billion. Both depend on repeat purchases each season. A permanent in-ground system had no place in that economy. Bordeaux mixture, which any farmer could mix together from 2 cheap commodity chemicals, was replaced by proprietary synthetics starting in the 1930s. Early tests showed that the new compounds increased yields by only 23 to 35% over Bordeaux, while Bordeaux mixture alone provided a 64% increase over untreated crops. Substitutes often performed worse, but generated licensing income. Copper was reframed as obsolete, and the conversation shifted from soil biology to soil chemistry. Today, copper is the 3rd most used fungicide in the world, with 6 million pounds used annually in California alone. The industry knows copper works. They prefer to sell it in branded bottles. Now let's build it. First, 3 safety rules that can save your entire garden bed if you follow them and ruin it if you skip them. Safety. Never use pressure-treated lumber. It contains arsenic and chromated copper compounds designed to kill biological life, which is the opposite of what we are building. Never use black walnut wood. It releases the chemical juglone, which is lethal to tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, potatoes, and most other garden vegetables within the root zone. Never use painted, stained, or varnished wood. The coatings contain solvents and heavy metals that leach into the soil where you grow your food. Stick to clean, untreated hardwoods and you'll eliminate all major risks. You need 3 things: dead wood, crushed coal, and copper pipe. The first layer is the foundation. Dig a bed to a depth of 60 centimeters. Place the largest logs and branches on the bottom. Oak, maple, birch, fruit tree wood, or alder work well. Avoid cedar and redwood, which decompose so slowly that they stall the process for years. Ideal wood has already begun to soften and is showing the first white threads of fungal colonization. This means that the engine of decomposition is already working. Pack smaller sticks and wood chips in between. Cover with a thin layer of leaves, grass clippings, or kitchen scraps for nitrogen. This is your water reservoir, heat engine, and microbial fuel cell. Layer 2 is the coal zone. You have two options. The easy way is to buy a bag of lump charcoal at any grocery or hardware store. Never use briquettes. They are compressed with binders, fillers, and lighter fluid chemicals. A free way is to make your own. Take a steel barrel or an old metal trash can and drill 8 to 10 holes near the bottom for airflow. Fill with dry hardwood branches and lumber scraps, unprocessed only. Light from the top, not from the bottom. This is called top fire, upward draft combustion. The fire burns downward through the wood while oxygen is fed upward through the holes, carbonizing the wood beneath the flame front into charcoal instead of turning it into ash. When the wood has turned black but still retains its shape, pour water over everything to stop the burning. Do this outdoors in a clear area away from buildings, fences, and dry vegetation. Always keep a hose or bucket of water within reach. Never attempt this in an enclosed space. Allow the charcoal to cool completely before handling. However you get the coal, grind it down to the size of gravel. Before burying any biochar, you must charge it. Fresh charcoal is chemically starved. Its massive surface area will initially absorb nutrients from the surrounding soil, temporarily starving the plants instead of feeding them. Soak crushed charcoal in compost tea, diluted worm humus, or diluted fish emulsion for at least 48 hours. This loads the pores with nutrients and beneficial microbes so that the charcoal begins to be given out instead of taken in. Spread this charged biochar in a 10 to 15 centimeter layer on top of the wood layer. It's your nutrient magnet, electrical bridge, and permanent microbial habitat. It won't decay and will outlast the wood, copper, and probably the fence around your property. Layer 3. Root zone. Cover the coal with 15 to 20 centimeters of your best garden soil. This is where you plant. Now take a 30 to 45 centimeter piece of copper pipe type M, the thinnest and cheapest wall thickness from any hardware store. Sand the surface with sandpaper to remove the oxide layer that slows down the release of ions. Drill 6 to 10 6-millimeter holes in the bottom 2/3 of the pipe to increase surface contact with soil moisture. Bury it vertically in the center of the bed with 10 to 15 centimeters sticking out above the soil line. This exposed part is your slug barrier. The buried part is your micronutrient delivery system and antifungal shield. One pipe per bed, measuring 1 meter 20 by 2 meters 40. Do not overdo it with copper. Copper is a microelement, not a macroelement. More does not mean better. Optionally, press a single galvanized zinc nail into the soil 20 to 30 centimeters from the pipe and 15 centimeters deep. Zinc is another essential plant micronutrient required for the production of the growth hormone auxin. The moisture between the copper and zinc creates a galvanic circuit, the same reaction that Bain documented in 1841. The biochar-enriched soil between them is an excellent electrolyte. A multimeter pressed against both metals should read between 0.8 and 1.1 volt. Limit this to 1 pair per plant. Excess zinc builds up and will stress the roots and harm earthworms. When the nail is visibly corroded and the voltage drops below 0.5 volt, replace with a fresh one. The copper side lasts for years. What to expect season after season. During the first month, the wood begins to absorb rainwater and the copper begins to interact with soil moisture. By 6 to 8 weeks, the soil near the pipe will darken slightly as the antimicrobial properties of copper inhibit soil pathogens. Slug damage drops immediately because the above-ground barrier is active from day one. By the end of the first full season, the plants closest to the pipe should show noticeably less late blight and infection compared to plants at the edges of the bed. In the second year, the woody layer comes into full force as a water reservoir. Many gardeners report dramatically reduced watering needs. Biochar continues to capture and retain nutrients. building a richer root zone month after month. In the third year and beyond, the bed begins to behave like terra preta, becoming richer rather than poorer, producing heavier harvests with less input. But don't take our word for it. Track your results. It separates garden experimentation from good intentions. Buy an inexpensive refractometer and take Brix readings on plant leaves every 2 weeks. Brix measures dissolved sugars and solids in plant sap, a direct indicator of nutrient density and overall plant health. Higher Brix means healthy plants that are also more resistant to pests and diseases. Take a voltage reading from your copper-zinc pair with a basic digital multimeter. Press one probe to the copper, one to the zinc. You should see 0.8 to 1.1 volt. Take a photo of the plants next to a ruler or measuring stick every week to have a visual record of growth. Weigh your harvest at the end of the season on a kitchen scale. It's critical to keep a reference row. Plant the same seeds in the same soil, with the same sunlight and the same water, but without wood, without coal, and without copper. Let 2 beds grow side by side. Let the numbers tell the story. Document everything. Share the results in the comments. This is how yard observation becomes a reproducible science. This is how we restore the evidence base that was filed in the government archives 90 years ago. Now let's put this into perspective. A bag of synthetic fungicide costs $8 to $15 and requires reapplication 4 to 6 times per season. Slug pellets cost $10 to $15 per season. Copper micronutrient supplements cost $8 to $12. Add compost, and you'll get $60 to over $100 a year per raised bed. Over 10 years, that's $600 to $1,000. A few dead logs cost nothing, a bag of coal costs $4, copper pipe costs $2, a zinc nail costs cents. The total installation is less than $10. In 10 years, less than $10 versus potentially thousands of dollars. An entire business model collapses before the $10 experiment. Each layer feeds the others. Wood feeds the biology below. Charcoal holds chemistry in place. Copper and zinc manage the delivery of trace elements through the root zone. Water is stored in the wood and released on demand, heat radiating upward from decomposition. Biochar increases electrical conductivity, which enhances the galvanic reaction. The wood feeds microbes with organic carbon, which generate biological electricity. Water supports the functioning of the galvanic cell and the microbial community. Take away any one layer and the other 2 still work. Combine all 3 and you get something that grows year after year instead of depleting. The proof has been sitting in the Amazon jungle for over 2,000 years. The terra preta soils created before the Roman Empire are still fertile today. Coal is still in the ground. The only thing that changed was who controlled the conversation about how food should be grown. Like and subscribe. Every person who builds one of these beds is one less customer buying 4 separate products each season. If this sounds like something worth sharing with someone who gardens, go for it. You're giving them information that an entire industry has kept invisible for decades. We're building the channel around one idea. The most effective tools for growing food are already discovered, cost next to nothing, and are almost never what's advertised. We dig up science that has been buried and put it back where it belongs, in your soil growing your food. In the next video, we lift another curtain of secrecy, and you will learn one very important secret that the world elites do not want you to know about.